WNST, Towson, Baltimore. Age on 1 year and into another year, and whether we're playing football next week in Kansas City or Jacksonville or parts unknown will depend on the outcome of this weekend's game. And here come the Cincinnati Bengals and my old pal Marvin Lewis and my old pal Geoff Hobson, who writes for Bengals.com. He is the website editor there in the Queen City, coming up here. And you know, Hobby, there were a lot of these years before Marvin came around. I mean, there haven't been a whole lot of New Year's Eves where the Bengals haven't been involved in a playoff race. This obviously isn't that year. A lot of speculation, but from our perspective, it's a dangerous football game and a dangerous football team coming in here on New Year's Eve trying to curdle our purple Festivus for the new year.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, it's one of the, it's underrated. I think it's always the Ravens and the Steelers always get the ink, but I think the Ravens and the Bengals probably play even better games, and it may be even more competitive. I mean, obviously, just starting with Marvin himself, that's where it all began, the great defenses in Baltimore. Some of his great wins on the road have been down there, the first big one in 2004 with the 24-point fourth quarter.
That was the worst day of my life at that point in my life, but I was still younger then, I think.
I mean, these are there's been the best of times and the worst of times with Baltimore. So they've each had their, I think it's kind of fitting that, the Baltimore has to beat the Bengals to get in.
Well, let's go to what happened this year, right? And all the speculation will be there about Marvin, and all that will be there next week for him and 10 other coaches in the league. And quite frankly, Marvin's been on the hot seat at least 2 or 3 times that I'm aware of in the last 15 years, where this week, the week after Christmas, New Year's, it looked like he wasn't coming back. So, that'll play itself out. But for winning a football game at this point and rallying around him and rallying around your quarterback and veteran coordinators, and if there is going to be upheaval in your organization, this is a great way to sort of christen it on the way out for everybody there trying to exercise demons. And, last I checked, we have a hard time winning football games against elite wide receivers when we don't have Jimmy Smith. Right now, we don't have Jimmy Smith. So for that always opens up that possibility of don't let the Bengals come in here and wreck our playoffs.
Hey, look, this passing game is sick. This passing game is ill. This is a passing game that you got to go back, God dare I say it, but to the Achilles Smith and David Klingler days, they are dead last in offense. And the passing game is sick, and it needs to get fixed. And, you get A.J. Green, and he needs somebody to help him. And you've got a retooled offensive line, and they need help. And they've got to run the ball. It's going to be the worst running team in Cincinnati Bengals history for a full season unless they get 220 yards, and the Ravens aren't going to give them 220 yards on the ground. So this offense is sick, and it's a good Baltimore defense, and you saw what happened in the opener. Cincinnati couldn't score a point. So, they're a little bit better than that, but they got to get over some. They got to get over some obstacles.
Geoff Hobson joining us here. He's our old pal from Bengals.com. He is an old-line Red Sox fan. We'll get to the baseball portion of our programming here a little later on in the conversation. You can follow him out at Bengals.com, where he is the website editor, as well as at Geoff Hobson Sin. That's Geoff Hobson, just like Butchie, and Sin as in Cincinnati, C-I-N, not the city of sin. That's Vegas, and that's the Raiders, and that's a whole other story. But, Hobby, for this team and what went wrong, right? Like, I have you on 2, 3, 4 times a year. Like, I have all the Cincinnati guys on because we're in the same division, because it's been so relevant here for, quite frankly, all of the Harbaugh administration, all of the Marvin Lewis administration. This has been twice a year we get together, and the games mean a lot. And they're always, at the end of the year, it's always meaning playoffs or not playoffs for one of these two teams, or division or no division, or bye or no bye, or all of those things. And famously, the Bengals haven't won playoff games with Marvin, with Carson Palmer, as well as during the Andy Dalton era. But for me, the offseason, I thought that you guys had sort of fallen apart a little bit, but then I sort of got heartened during the preseason and looking at the game and first week, and I thought, well, if they can patch the offensive line, they'll probably be okay. This story really does begin with the O-line for your squad, right? Because
it begins and ends. It begins and ends with the O-line. I mean, that's why I thought when Marvin came in 2003, and rebooted at 11. I thought a big thing he had going for him, and he took advantage of it, was he had two good tackles in Willie Anderson and Levi Jones, a solid offensive line in 03 that was a big reason they were able to jump to 8-8. And in 11, when he rebooted with Dalton and Green, he was stout with Witt and Andre Smith at tackle, and a veteran center. And whoever comes in, or if Marvin's back, they're not going to have that. They're not going to have that luxury, because this line has to get rebuilt. You're exactly right. I mean, that was how the offensive line played out in preseason. They were hoping it was going to be better than it has, and it wasn't. And if you want to point to where this thing kind of came off the rails, it was the inability of the offensive line to play with any kind of consistency.
We've had a similar situation around here earlier in the year when we stunk after we saw you guys. Yanda went down, and Stanley wasn't right, and we didn't have the center thing figured out fully, and Jensen was trying to figure his way, and Austin Howard's trying to get to know guys' names.
But you guys won games. You know why you won games? Because you run the ball. You're committed to the run. You're physical. You run the ball. If you can run the ball, you can protect your O-line, and you can be quarterback. If you can't run the ball, you finish 32 and you win 6 games.
How did they win the 6 games? I mean, maybe that's a better question to ask.
They played Cleveland twice.
Okay. How did they win the 4 games?
But they ran the ball. I mean, when they run the ball, good things happen. And they ran the ball, and I tell you what, they played a hell of a game. Nasty. I think that the game on Sunday shows you Marvin Lewis at his best. He gets the best out of his team, whether they're winning, losing, or drawing. And they ran the ball, and they beat. I don't care what you say about Detroit. They'd won 8 games, and they're scoring points and ringing up yardage against anybody. And they come in here and they only get 17. You know why? Bengals run the field for 78 plays. Big reason. And their defense is decimated. They got none of their starting linebackers out there in the second half, and they don't have a starting corner out there. And they give Matthew Stafford 203 passing yards. It's pretty damn good. And you know what? They ran the ball, and they kept the ball. And it's a pretty good team. A lot of people saying, well, they're far away. They got to do this. They got to do that. I tell you what, they beat an 8-win club that needed to win to go to the playoffs. They beat them pretty soundly, beat up. So
I think these are the hard years, Hobby. When you win 6 games and you're all right, you'll give the Ravens a scare, maybe win, whatever it's going to be, not going to the playoffs. But then you look back at Green Bay, you lose an overtime game. I mean, we've been through this. Tennessee was a close game.
Sure.
Probably the Pittsburgh game, though, changed everything, though, right? Like the Bengals had sort of clawed back into that, hey, maybe we can win 9 or 10 games and we can put something together here. Right. And the Steelers thing, again, that proves to be the Waterloo for Marvin, where he got his start in Pittsburgh and whatnot. But what has baked into that rivalry or the ugliness of every facet of the relationship between Steelers and Bengals in the modern era? Hey, we play the Steelers twice a year too, and we don't like each other, but I mean, your games are body bag games.
Oh, no question. You're exactly right, Nestor, about this club. You look back at this team. They got beat by Green Bay in OT. They had a chance to they have a chance to put the dagger in, and Joe Mixon slips on 3rd and 1. That's a game. Tennessee, they're right in it till the end. They lead. They blow a lead in the last 5 minutes. That's a game. They should have beat the game that kills them is a Deshaun Watson game. Deshaun Watson comes here in his first NFL start. They play terrific defense, but they let him get away in a 49-yard touchdown run on a scramble, and they don't score a touchdown and get beat 13-9. That's 3 games, So they could, you could take a deep breath and you could say, hell, they could have the same record as the Ravens right now, if with any kind of, those are 3 very winnable games. So when people say, they got to blow it up, they don't have to blow it up. They're right there. My opinion. They just need to hone. They just need to get some things squared away. But I mean, that's why I think Harbaugh did a great job this year, because just like with the Bengals, a lot of things didn't go right, and a lot of guys got hurt. But they won the games they were supposed to win, and they won the close ones, and that's how you win. And if the Bengals had done that, they could have won their 9 too.
Geoff Hobson joining us here from Bengals.com. Geoff, I know you're employed by the Brown family, but, dare I say from here and FireMikeBrown.com and all the coaches and the Coslet era and all the other things that went on, during this modern era, and, I'm waiting for the baseball owner to grow up around here, run things the right way, and they're not doing that right now here, and I know you're a baseball fan. I would just say that the patience shown with Marvin, the patience shown through two quarterbacks, the patience shown through a period of time where Jay Gruden, Zimmer, all of your old buddies, right, that, were there as O and DCs that went off into the world and coached in other places and did other things. The Bengals have had a success sustained in this period of time that they've never known in the whole ownership since they moved to town there. It's going to be a fascinating thing, not just for Marvin in Cincinnati, but for when Belichick leaves New England, for when Harbaugh leaves here, much like Billick had been here almost a decade. Anytime there is a change of that magnitude, boy, things can get really rocky really quick when some one person has been sort of running a place that long. It is a lot of upheaval to say, well, let's just go change our coach, because there's a sustained success that happens in Pittsburgh and Baltimore and now Cincinnati over a course of time that happens because of that continuity.
Yeah, the thing about Mike, you got to tip your hat with Mike, is he hired Marvin Lewis, and he stuck by him. And
sure.
He knows what Marvin means to this franchise. He knows. Marvin professionalized this franchise. He brought it into the NFL. Marvin brought it into the NFL of the 21st century. He'd been to Pittsburgh. He won in Pittsburgh. He'd won in Baltimore. He brought that knowledge of the AFC North. Knew what he had to do to beat Pittsburgh and Baltimore, and he did. He went to the playoffs 7 times in the toughest division in football. The Bengals had gone to the playoffs 7 times in their entire history before Marvin got here. So you're right. Yeah,
you got a million of those for Marvin, don't you? You've written about him so long, Geoff. All of the things that he's achieved there that no one else. Yeah. There's probably a list of 50, literally, right?
Oh, no question. And Mike and I think Mike knows that, and I think that's what made it. You talk about the consistency and the teamwork, and I think Mike and Marvin did have that. That they do have that, and very important. And I think it's an underrated part of this thing. Is that, Mike went out and got him, stood by him, and I certainly hope, and I wrote this before the home game, and you certainly don't boo Marvin Lewis, you stand and applaud. He turned this thing around, he brought him into the 21st century. It's their most successful run they've ever had. Terrific hire. Maybe it's not over, but if it's not over, it certainly should be an era that's celebrated.
Geoff, for you with the depth chart and what we're going to see here, as you've pointed out, a lot of problems on this team, what does the offseason look like for Marvin or whomever is going to be running the place? Where are they going to go draft-wise, cap-wise, player-wise? Hey, look, man, for the longest time, and I used to always say this to you, that entire core of, Malaluga and Dunlop and Atkins and Johnson and the back end with Pac-Man and Aloka and all those guys that were there for all this period of time, including the O-line with Zeitler and, the rest of those guys that had been there. It was the same group of dudes for a long, long time. That really does feel like it sort of is rolled over half on Marvin at this point, because I don't know that the Dunlop and the Atkins and the Johnsons and the Burficts and the Kirkpatricks are going to be there when this team wins again.
Oh yeah, no, they'll be there. No, Burfict is signed up. Hell, he means so much to him and you can tell when he's out. They got to re-up Gino and Carlos. They're up after next year, so they got to deal with that. But this whole off season is about offense. They got to get, if there is a change, there's going to be a change whether Marvin's here or not, because they have to get well offensively. They have to put it up on the lift. They got to draft on the offensive line. They got to invest in the offensive line. They got to find a running mate for AJ. They've got to work on their tight ends, because Eifert's a free agent. He can't stay healthy. They got to figure out what to do there. It's clearly, you've got to, Andy Dalton gets banged. I don't want to hear about the banging about Andy Dalton. The guy wins games. He's got top 10 stats when there's people around him. Andy Dalton is not their problem, okay? They got to get the line fixed. They got to find complementary guys for AJ. They got to find out if John Ross can play. This is going to be an offensive off season. Has to be.
What do you make of the Ravens, Hobby? At this point, the Steelers are, flying high and in, no problem. Made some easy work of Houston there, sort of a half-baked effort there. There's going to be all sorts of movement around. Obviously, the Hugh Jackson coming back to you guys thing sort of plays out as to where the Browns are going to be, and it looks like they're not going to win this year as well. But the Ravens, win this week, win by a point, win by a fraction, a decimal, whatever it is, and they'll have life into January. We're all sort of shocked by the way the whole season is played out here, including how many empty seats you're going to see here when you get here. No offense to Cincinnati, but it looks more like a Bengals game with the seats. I don't think you've ever seen empty seats in Baltimore in 22 years of coming in here. The knee was a big factor, and I've been writing about it and talking about it, and around the league, selling tickets is an issue. Here in Baltimore, we've got we're going to the playoffs if we win this week, and somehow, some way, everybody's off the purple bandwagon here.
I don't know. I like Harbaugh. I think he's the kind of coach that excels. This is, when a team is, you get a little bit reduced with a lot of injuries. I don't think they're running on full gas on either offense or defense. But John knows how to coach. He knows how to coach in the playoffs. He's aware of the clock. He's aware of situations. I think a lot of that is because of his special teams background. I think he's a hell of a postseason coach. And I think they're dangerous. I think Flacco makes them dangerous, and he proved that in 12. He got hot, and he carried him. So I think a lot depends on Joe. Is he going to be check down Joe, or are they going to be able to get him some room? Can they protect him? That's the big question. I think the defense is obviously good enough to go someplace and win on the road. And that's the big thing. They got the defense to win on the road, and I think they don't turn it over, and Joe gets hot. I think they win one in the playoffs.
What's the scenario where the Bengals knock the Ravens out this week, as you see it? How do the Bengals at this point come in and win? Played pretty decently last week, right?
I think it's a very big possibility they come down there and win, because Paul Guenther has a very good track record against Joe Flacco. Now, I know it was a little bit tough here with Joe. Joe was coming off the opener. Joe was still aching a little bit. So that wasn't a real, it's not the Flacco we're going to see this week. But Paul Guenther has had Flacco's old golfing buddy from down on the Jersey Shore in the off season. Paulie's got he has a pretty good track record against Joe. I think that helps him. I think there'll be a little. As much as Marvin doesn't want to say, not thinking about it last game, whatever. I think they'll play with a little bit of emotion for Marvin, because they know they're in his home. Could it work out any better if it is indeed Marvin's last game and as the Bengals coach and it's in Baltimore? Who wrote that script?
They carry him off. They pick him up and carry him off the field if they win Sunday. Literally, right? They. I don't know if they'll do that, but I know they'll do what Marv's teams do. They'll play hard, and I think that's one thing you obviously have to do to win down there. So you get the Guenther thing, you get them playing hard. I think. But the thing that scares me down there, and I've seen this, how many times do you see the Ravens turn a game around in one series when Suggs and the other werewolves just kill the quarterback in a stretch of 4 or 5 plays? I saw it in 13 in the overtime game. Saw it in 03 when they won the division. Levi Jones got hurt, and just everybody was taking a shot at the left tackle, and they turned the game around in about 8 seconds with the quarterback pressure. And the way the Bengals have a reconfigured offensive line, they're going to have a couple rookies at guard. They got a transplanted guard playing left tackle in Clint Bowling. He's got to play Mr. Suggs. That's the matchup of the game right there. How does Clint go against Suggs? He watched Witt do it for years, but Clint's a different player. He's a guard. He's not a tackle. But I could see this going right down to the end. You got to give the edge to Baltimore because of the kicker. Because I think it's going to be a fourth quarter game. I just think it's given the way it's breaking down. I think emotionally and physically, and the going on the track records. To me, it's a toss-up game, and you got to give the edge to the home team and to the kicker. But I don't. It's hard for me to see the Bengals go down there and play badly. He is Geoff Hobson. You can follow him at Bengals.com as well as at Geoff Hobson Sin. That's C-I-N for Cincinnati. We will get on to the most important part of the conversation now, which is the baseball offseason. You know, my team should have just put a, not functioning in the offseason sign up on the wall and just went away. You're a Red Sox guy. Certainly what the Yankees have done has sort of probably angered up all the Red Sox blood, right? I mean, here in Baltimore, we're trying to figure out how to get 2 bags of beans to rent Manny Machado for 600 at-bats before he takes off for, draft pick compensation. And, in Boston, you're trying to figure out how to win 92 games and be a wild card because it looks like the Yankees are going to win 120, right?
Yeah, I don't know how you let that. I don't know how you let that guy go to New York if you're in Boston. I don't know how that happened. I guess he didn't want to go to Boston or didn't try to get him. But I mean, now we'll know. Our grandfathers or our different grandfathers had to go. Get their heads bashed in every year by Gehrig and Ruth. So I guess we'll have an idea what that look. I guess with those 3-4 guys. You get guys that can hit 60 homers for God's sake.
How many are they going to hit at Fenway to break your heart? Is the question, right? Over the course of time.
No, quite for 10 years, not just for this year. 10 years. They're about 16 years old, both of them. So it's just, and I don't know what the Red Sox are doing. I don't know if they're trying to pull a trade for Tony Conigliaro or what, but it's
they need Big Papi. I mean, think about them.
They need a bat. I know they need a bat. They need a bat, and they've sat on their ass for 2 years and haven't gotten one. So I don't know. How do you not go out and try to replace 40 homers and 120 RBIs? They didn't even try. So and that even doesn't get into the, they need at least another arm, and maybe 2. So. I don't know what's going on there.
We don't know who our number 3 starter is right now, Hobby. So we have bigger problems as we go down to Sarasota, like finding the Amish market or the beach, because there's not any real thought around here that we're going to be playing meaningful baseball this summer. Hey, well, at least we have Sunday. My love to Marvin into Cincinnati. Even when Marvin's not there anymore, you'll be there.
I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a good game. I mean, I love the Ravens. I love the way they play. I always have. I think Harbaugh's kind of partial to Harbaugh because he was here at University of Cincinnati for so long. I think they're well coached. I love Suggs. God, I've been watching Suggs. I feel like Suggs is older than me almost. I don't know, but he's so good. He's such a good player, and I just see it. I just think it's fitting that these two are playing. For Baltimore to go, and if Marvin is indeed, if this is it, it's just like I said, it's a hell of a script. You got to give the edge to the Ravens. They got so much to play for. They're at home, and they got the kicker. But I think it's going to be a good game.
I got one guy in the whole community that's happy they flexed the game, and that's Hobby, because you get an extra afternoon for a crab cake while you're in town. So they move it back 3 hours. You get an extra meal.
It just might mean another. It just might mean another batch of French fries or pickles.
I'll say the same thing to you. I'll say to Marvin, don't come in here and wreck our season on Sunday. That will get us off on the wrong foot in 18, Hobby.
Always go back and check out where the Babe was, where George Herman was, and can you imagine if the Red Sox didn't sell him?
It always comes back to that, doesn't it? The curse of the Bambino. You've won how many 3 championships now? I mean, well, come on, be happy.
I had the great pleasure one time of sharing a driving range with. It was just me and Johnny Bench, and I wandered away and watched him hit a ball, and I said, if you'd hit the ball that straight, leading off the 9th inning in Game 2 of the 75 series, we would have been champions. And he didn't even turn around. He had no idea who the hell I was. He didn't even turn around. He said, "Take it easy. You won one." This was an 05 or something. He goes, "Take it easy. You guys won one."
Well, at least you weren't doing the Carlton Fisk wave. If you were doing that, he would have said, "Well, we won the next one." I don't know if you remember that or not. So
that's the series the Red Sox won 3-3.
Had everything but the parade there, Hobby. Hey, man, we're going to send everybody out to the website to check out Marvin's top 15 road victories. I know some of them include Baltimore. Some of them have broken my heart, and some of them I still blame on myself. So take care of yourself, man. We'll have the crab cakes waiting for you when you get in here, all right?
Sounds great, Nestor. Give my best to everyone down there. Give my best to the wife.
Happy 18. She sends her best in all that New England, clam chowder sort of bromance way that Red Sox fans all sort of commiserate and get together, especially in years when they don't win. and fire their manager. So we've look, I can't talk any smack to anybody that's a baseball fan at this point. We have our own problems here. You can find the Ghost of Baltimore football past, present, and future out at WNST.net, as well as in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day as we get ready for the big game this week. Cincinnati and the Ravens moved to 425, flexed out for you. The morning newspaper, we don't flex that. That comes at 7 a.m. every morning. $10 a month, never any commitment. That's the way they do it at Planet Fitness, and they sponsor our WNST morning newspaper and get that to you on time at 7 a.m. We don't even, make any bones about like the when the time changes, It's just 7 a.m. You know when you're getting it. The morning newspaper. Get some inspiration at Planet of Triumphs as well. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.